This is Strado with the 9th and final video in my series of Mythic Amirdrassil kill video reviews, where I'm going to go through my Fyrakk kill and give some pointers on what I did during progress, what I learned, what my plan was, point out some mistakes I make on the kill, because there are a few. So yeah, let's start with the talents as usual. For DPS, I would not play Flay on this, just play Spike. There's a lot of movement. Also play Shadow Crash, partially because of the movement, partially because it gives you some cheap Twist of Fate uptime when there's ads up, and also because, as I mentioned in general, it's just cheap, and you can help out with the ads a bit. For the class talent, there's two very important ones, and one sort of important. The important ones are Voidshuffle, which you use on one of the big trees in Phase 2 to heal them up basically immediately and completely. It's like 80% of the tree's health, which is pretty nuts. The other one is Master Spell. You press this once in Phase 1 to reset all of the stacks, let healers catch back up again, because they will inevitably fall behind. And then the third one, which isn't necessary, but you might as well take it, because you can't get spell warding because of Master Spell, it's Shackle. You might as well spend the dead point on it, because then you can be a backup CC, or you can even be a primary CC, although that's really awkward because it's short range. But you can. So yeah, for talents, that's basically it. For trinkets, I played Spindle and Blood. I have a Blood with Avoidance on the Myth track, so pretty easy choice. The best setup is almost certainly Spindle and Suncaller. I could have played Heroic Suncaller, but I chose not to. I didn't want to risk the extra damage, and the Avoidance is just nice. So I played this. If you do play Suncaller, make sure you use it on the isolated boss, not on ads. So that means on pull there's nothing much to say. The second use should be either at the very tail end of Phase 1 during the milk, or after the shield has been broken before the boss flies away in the intermission. And then after that, just try to isolate the boss again whenever the trinket happens to be up. And then in last phase, there's not much to say. There's only one boss. You can't split it. So just use it on CD when it's not going to kill you. So yeah, trinket-wise, that's basically it. Spindle is a bit annoying with the channel time, but you kind of get used to it. So yeah, let's look at some CD usage for DPS first. The first CDs in Phase 1 don't really have much to say about them. You use it on pull, and then you use it again after the first Dream Rend, the big running, which is basically what all of these like 107, 108s are. Some people hold a little bit longer just to be in better position. It doesn't really matter, you can use it whenever here, because this use is a complete waste. There's no reason to do it, you're holding DPS anyway. Then the next use of PI is where the question comes in. Most people end up using it on the shield. I did that for early progress until we massively overkilled the shield and we switched some CDs off there, one of them being me. If you don't use it on the shield, you use it basically immediately when the boss lands, which is going to be here at like 3:30-ish. I'm the second from the bottom, just for reference. If you use it on the shield, you have the next PI ready, either for the big ads, or you can use it on the boss after the big ads. What I ended up doing is using it after the shield, then I hold my DA for the boss to come back again. You can also use it here, which is what some other people did, which gets you like half the DA on the purple ad and the other half on the boss. But I just wanted boss damage, so I held it until the boss came back, because our ads were dying really quickly. Then what most people end up doing is they have their PI and stuff ready again for Lust. I do not. I use my PI and stuff here at the point where the boss comes back after the second big ads, which means I just get to sit there hitting the boss. There's basically no mechanics happening. Then I use another one immediately in Phase 3 basically, and then one here which is at roughly 20% boss health. Potion isn't quite ready yet, which is unfortunate, but it means you have Twist, you get extra deaths, all of that stuff, which is really nice. If you don't do that, you just use it here with Lust, which is also fine. You get to plant for most of this as well. roughly the same planting degree as here, because this is after the first draw, mine is after the second draw. The mechanics that happen are the same. And then the last use here is just, it's ready, might as well use it. This is also where I should use my potion with my CD setup. On the kill, I end up using it at the end here and getting some procs, and it's fine. But it's halfway through my CDs, which isn't ideal. So yeah, that's the DPS CDs. For defensive CDs, in phase 1, you want to Desperate Prayer, at least I think you really do, just before the second Dreamrend, where you have a sequence of blazes, you have the frontals, and you have Wildfire, which is just a ton of damage, especially if you get hit by anything. So that's where I Desperate Prayer, and that because of that timing, which is like 145, 150, like right here. Because of that, I use my first Desperate Prayer basically on pull, just on the first things that happen, which are some frontals, just in case I get hit. So I can safely channel Void Torrent and be greedy. I also basically always health pot for this overlap with the Desperate Prayer, because healers ignore me. Dispersions, I really like using it during the second Dreamrend, because DPS doesn't matter, you can just sit it, and then afterwards you just get into position and keep playing. And then the next point, where Dispersion is really nice, honestly, is if you get the cages in phase 2 during the ads, you can just press Dispersion right as the stun is about to hit, and then cancel it again after you've been freed, which is like 2 seconds or something of being in Dispersion while you're stunned anyway. So you lose nothing and take basically no damage, which is really cute. You can't do it if you get caged in both phases, but it's not that likely that you'll get the cage in both. So just use it on the first one if you get the cage, and then for the second one you have to like fade and just get healed. And then later there's not really any nice points for Dispersion, because you're just blasting boss you don't really want to sit in a defensive CD, and there's no mechanic that really needs you to. If you are grossly out of position, you can use Dispersion to live a raw. You will still have the dot afterwards, which will mess you up, but you can live the initial hit and sit in Dispersion for most of the dot and live. And you can, I guess, do that twice in last phase if you really need to, but you shouldn't. Please don't. So yeah, that's the CDs. Let's get to the actual killing of the boss. On pull, you don't want a ninja pull. The boss will jump on you and one-shot you because you're not a warlock. So you pre-crash. If you're a spindle, you spindle immediately after, go into CDs. Here you can see the frontals are coming up. If one spawns close, try to bait it away from melee. And then you can see here the firestorms come up. I Desperate Prayer because I might as well. Even though I'm not really taking damage, it's just free use because you're going to want it at the like 150 mark. Then you want to bait images into group soaks. If you want to bait an image, you just need to be the closest person to it when it locks in, which happens at what feels like a somewhat inconsistent timing, but you just want to be the closest person to make it face towards you. Then you end up wanting to master spell here if you're assigned. This is a really nice one to do because it's just before the Dreamrend where the healers are going to be busy, so getting a full reset on all the debuffs is really nice. During the run, try to use your instants, your procs, whatever. Be liberal with Power Shield as well, because phase 1 DPS doesn't matter, especially not on later progress. On very early progress it might. Usually, actually, during the Dreamrend, I end up running more along here, going into my CDs and from Prick and Brace and whatever, and then protecting over here from these images. This time I ended up over here, which is unusual, but it's not bad. But yeah, bait the images. Then you have Firestorm. With the way I usually run, I would need Goblin Jump to make it over, but I have it because I am Goblin, so it doesn't matter really. Then after this Firestorm, there's Frontals again. You can see the Hunter, who's basically my partner in protecting this side, ends up baiting there. Fade you just use for any mechanic that does anything, basically. So the group stokes are a good fallback if you have nothing else. Then here the Desperate Prayer comes up. I also use my health potion just for full safety. And then we position over here for the Dream Rend. This is the one where I just disperse and use my Shadow of Deaths to get stacks for when we hold DPS. I used to walk all the way along the edge over here, much further out, and not get the Stampeding Roar. It works. It's like, if you don't care about DPS, it's fine. Either one is fine if you don't care about DPS. But if you're with the group, you can allow yourself to slide a little bit more because you have the Stampeding Roar. Then here you can see for the last like 15 seconds I've been playing like an absolute clown because we're stopping DPS. So I just want to make sure I have full stacks of stat bonus. Ideally I want my dots refreshed, and then I want to Devouring Plague, Shadow Crash, Death, Void Torrent, and then either Death or Mind Blast. That's, I think, the ideal sequence for milking. You can just barely get it off. In this case, I have all of these lines to dodge, so I do basically nothing in terms of milking. I end up getting my set bonus used, I get some death on the boss to just stack it back up again. Then here you gate in. One thing to note, if you're doing CDs here and are playing Spindle, you want to Spindle immediately, because you might get some cringe assignment over here, getting like R1, R2, or L1, L2, that kind of thing. And channeling a 3-second thing is not something you want to do once you want to actually move. So get it out of the way, get into CDs and start blasting, and make sure you soak your orbs. Especially on later progress, the shield check is completely free. We push it way too early in our case already. But on early progress, you might even want to Bloodlust the shield just to make sure it breaks. I don't anymore. I don't use anything on the shield that has a particularly long CD. I even make sure to hold set bonus stacks for after the shield breaks. You can see here I get R5 purple, which means I basically never have to soak anything, and barely even have to pay attention to it. Shadow Crash you want to make sure you don't use too late in the phase, because you want it as the boss comes back. If you fade for the second orbs, which is the set before this, you also cover like a set or two of blazes, which is really nice. I end up doing it here, which is fine. I get full value of it in the intermission. Then you can see here I have my set bonus stacks. I use them on the actual boss's health, not on the shield. You run more or less into position. Then here, you'll see a Shadow Crash on basically exactly 0 on the timer. It's not that tight of a timing to hit it before he jumps away, but just practice a little bit. Then I go into CDs, position over here to the side, because that way I'll have fewer blazes overlapping me, hopefully. This is a place where you can send a fade completely for free, if you get targeted by anything or people overlap you. My Vampiric Embrace needs to be cast slightly earlier than the timer says, because otherwise it's not ready for the next time my raid leader wants it. I'm not sure if he just doesn't know how time works or what happened there, but it is what it is. You can see I mess up a lot here with my rotation and do a bunch of stupid GCDs. Back up a CC and set up to do damage to the Burning Colossus, which is the priority target here. Our ads die really quickly, so I also try to make sure I just do as much boss damage as possible while the boss is flying away in phase 2. As I run in here, into the ads where the breath was, I send both Fade and Desperate Prayer just for safety, because that's a lot of blazes that are just moving all over the place. You might get hit. Here you can see I end up holding onto my set stacks and using them on the boss instead, or rather on the Shadow Crash that hits both the boss and the ad. I have plenty of time until like roughly 5 minutes to use this set of CDs, so I can actually spend my Insanity beforehand, that kind of thing. There's no big rush to immediately press it. You see I life trip one of the ads in, that's another assignment I have. I try to do it after they're already topped, just in case the healers are doing some AoE healing thing. Here's the second Vampiric Embrace. You can see it's just barely not ready because I popped it too late, or even though it was early relative to the timer. Here again you can see me hitting the boss all the way until he's gone. And then onto the Burning Colossus. One thing I forgot to mention is my Iridar, which I used in the first ad phase on the red Colossus. You can use it on either one, it doesn't really matter, it'll be ready. You just want to make sure to use it in this, in the previous ad phase. That way it's ready again for phase 3, so you can get your 2 users there. Another thing you might have seen in this ad phase is I void shift my big tree. Usually I end up having fade up for it. I like to power word shield as a follow-up or beforehand just to be safe. Even though there's no actual damage going out, you're completely fine. Then once again, you can see I'm setting up my set bonus stacks here for the boss. I spindle the small ad just to spend as little time where the boss is active casting my trinket. It's not necessary to get it ready in time for the next use. I just like doing it this way. Then you have a bunch of blazes, nothing really happens, you just play the game. And you can see I life grip another ad in just to be helpful. The ad decides it doesn't want to be helped, so it just stops, walks back a bit, and then is basically back in line with all the others. Last set of blazes until the boss flies away. You only just hit the boss, milk as much damage as you can because all this health carries over all the way to the end. Here's another timer where just before the boss lands, or as he lands I guess, you goblin jump to cancel the knock. That way you can be in position immediately. For the final few pulls on the last night, I was no longer playing a good seed, so I just goblin jump over to this side and play here. Previously I was doing a seed, which meant I just did it the other direction, picked up the seed in the middle right, and then went over here and played basically the same mechanics, just other side of the room. But on the kill, I was deprived of my job, so I just played over here, get my stuff on cooldown, get my void turned off. After the breath, I get my DA and Bender. It's not super tight that I have to use it immediately with where I want to use my PI spindle. One thing to note though is you want to play as far back as possible really, just in case you get a tornado and need to drop it at the back, because as a priest you will not make it otherwise. This is also something to note if you're carrying a seed. You want to drop the seed as late as possible before dropping the tornado, just so it's as close as possible when running back in, so a swirly doesn't randomly blow it up. You can see we get the Apocalypse Roar, get a shield. As soon as you have the shield, you can start moving. After the first roar, we swap sides. This is where Bloodlust happens. I have no buttons. It's a bit sad, but it is what it is. So you just shift back over to the side, play as close over here as you can, really. And then during the next breath, dodge opposite of what I did here. Sorry, it's not this one, it's the next one. But basically, you want to dodge to somewhere where you have room. In this case, I had room on either side, so it didn't matter. One of the later ones, I dodged to a side where I have like 2 pixels to stand on, between the breath and the fire and the tornado. Here, the swirlies come up, Apocalypse Roar, this is one with gateway. And then basically immediately after the gateway, I'll get into my CDs. You can see I get pushed out, press 1 button, spindle. I get pushed to the middle, because that way I'm sure I can PI my hunter, who used to be playing over here, now he plays on this side, whatever. But yeah, I get into my CDs, pot is coming up soon, I end up using it here. This is the breath where I dodge wrong. I even cancel my void torrent for it, but I have very little room for no reason. I could have dodged to the other side and been fine. And again, I'm too close. If I got the tornadoes, Goblin Jump would save me, it's fine, but I should have played further out, just to drop tornadoes further. Defensive-wise in this phase, just Desperate Prayer or Fade if you are standing in a line, either your own blaze or somebody else's. Here we get the shield, shift back over to the initial side, play in this tiny corner as much as possible to give the seed carriers all the room they need to play their actual mechanics, because they need to do things correctly. You are just a passenger if you're not playing a seed. You can see my Iridal comes back up again here at like 7%, which means this is with using it at, I think, 31%, the initial phase 3 use, which means you have plenty of wiggle room now. And you won't get a third cast, so it doesn't really matter. You can use it pretty late. Here we're coming up to the 4th roar. which is the final one. In our case, the boss is really low, so we just keep him where he is. Normally, if you are going to actually play more mechanics, you move the boss over here to blue-red, just to have room on the sides to drop tornadoes and such. And I guess back here, you can also drop some. But the boss dies here. I mess up my last GCD, it should have been a Shadow and Pain, but it is what it is. The boss died, I played okay on the kill, and the tier is over. I'm not sure if I'll make more videos during farm, we'll see. I would have to come up with some very specific topic, I guess. But for now, this is the last one. Thank you for watching, I hope you learned something. Feel free to contact me if you have questions. I'll try to read the comments on YouTube, but otherwise Discord is by far the most likely to get a response. So yeah, feel free to do that, and thank you again for watching.